Frank, and if you've ever gotten into an argument on the internet with any geek, you know why we call this opinion piece. But let's face it, Toys R Us has closed its operations in the US. I suppose we had to all see this coming. Brick and mortar stores simply can't compete with online juggernauts. Like it or not, Amazon and eBay have become the dominant way people get toys. And this makes sense. Buying online is a much more efficient way of making a toy purchase. It's a much better way of ensuring that you don't trek all the way out to a toy store only to find they don't have the thing you're looking for in stock. But let's face it, the sad part about toy stores going the way of the dodo bird isn't that kids will no longer get toys. Toys will still be around, and of course, kids will still get them. The sadness comes simply from the fact that kids will no longer have the experience of walking into a toy store. And those are some of the strongest, most powerful memories a human being has in their lives. Entering a toy store when you're a kid is like drinking from the fire hose of awesomeness. You quickly realize that all the cool stuff you saw on toy commercials was just the tip of the iceberg, and that there's an ocean of mind-blowing, amazing toys you had no idea about. It's both thrilling and depressing to understand that even if it's your birthday, there's no way your family is going to be able to buy all the cool stuff you want in your toy box. And that's when you make the decision to not let your toy habit end with adolescence. You look around and realize the song in the commercial was right. I don't want to grow up. I'm a Toys R Us kid for life. I vividly remember when Toys R Us first opened in my hometown. The main toy store in my area was Child World, but then Toys R Us premiered in the hugely popular Shoppers World, creating serious competition and ultimately shutting it down. There was a bit of sadness to see Child World fade in favor of the newer, shinier, more convenient Toys R Us, but this is the nature of things. The strange thing about that Toys R Us store, my first Toys R Us, is that kids under the age of 16 were not allowed in the store without adult supervision. It was like an R-rated movie or something. You're not allowed to see Porkies or shelves stocked full of Micronauts and Shogun Warriors. I was like an 18-year-old standing outside of a liquor store waiting for a grown-up to go in. But instead of booze, my goal was a Spider-Man web shooter. My first Toys R Us hung examples of many toys high up on pegboards, so you could see them in all their glory without packaging. And this was incredibly effective, even for things that weren't your cup of Kool-Aid. I mean, I wasn't into G.I. Joe, but it was impossible to deny that that giant aircraft carrier thing wasn't truly epic. With the rise of toy collecting that followed, it's difficult not to think back on the mountains of rare toys that you'd see. The die-cast TIE Bomber? Yeah, I remember seeing about 30 of those on a shelf one time. I saw toys in the first year of Toys R Us that could put my daughter through college. Childhood experiences in toy stores are powerful, even when they were excruciating. There was nothing worse than being dragged into a toy store with the purpose of helping to pick out a present for some kid other than yourself. Holy Tantalus in the pool of receding water myth, Batman. It's like you were forced to be an expert witness on some bizarre case of Law and Order involving Battlestar Galactica vehicles. Yeah, you should go with that missile-firing colonial scarab. He will love it. Sob. Walking into a toy store makes a child industrious. When I was 12, I got a paper route so I could buy toys for myself. And when I was 16, I got a job at Toys R Us. Although I loved working there, it was sad to learn that the myth that many toy collectors dream of every night wasn't true. No, in the back warehouse, there aren't cases of vintage collectible toys that people have forgotten about. The 90s saw toys really take off. Many 20-somethings remained Toys R Us kids at heart. toys became hotter than ever. The plot of Jingle All the Way touched on a true phenomenon as toy scalping became a thing. Although, man, what a dumb action figure Turbo Man was. But in the real world, Todd McFarlane revolutionized the action figure market, and Toy Biz became so successful that they bought Marvel Entertainment. For grown-up geeks, going from Toys R Us to Toys R Us in the 90s was a ritual, and a fun, exciting ritual as toys became more and more magnificent. At the end of the 90s, I remember turning down an aisle and seeing that giant, enormous Millennium Falcon Toys R Us exclusive store display made by Extraordinaire and being blown away. It felt like the crescendo of an era, and it was. That Millennium Falcon brought with it the end of the millennium itself. Simultaneously, the power of the internet was ascending into an unstoppable force on the path to taking over much of all commerce. In the same way that the convenience of Toys R Us in my hometown brought about the downfall of Child World, eBay and Amazon made the need to trek out to TRU obsolete. It didn't happen overnight, but it was inevitable. The search for hard-to-find toys became monumentally easier, both for parents and collectors. And although this ultimately made our toy collections richer, our life experiences are the poorer for it. Regardless of the closings, I shall remain a Toys R Us kid because, let's face it, growing up is for suckers.